ourselves for disaster, for happiness, for grief, for loss, and pretty much the reason how and what we do is a testament for where we are right now. And the reason why this happens is because early on in our childhood, depending on the environment we're in, the people we're surrounded by, the place, as in the temperature, the environment, not only within the family home, but the neighbors, the schooling, the type of friends that our family have associated within themselves, that have brought them and invited them to our own life, are all factors to the way that we think, the way that we perceive life, the way that we see life. And so when you're bringing, let's just say, two different people from two different countries, two different cultures, two different religious backgrounds or non-religious backgrounds, and you put those two opposite each other, you will find they have a lot of things opposite, while they're sitting oppositely from each other. And the reason being is because of their upbringing. But they both have something very much in common. And the way that they think is based upon the upbringing. And so what brings us to something so interesting is that since two environments were so vastly different, what we can do, being similar in thought patterns based on that environment, is we can alter, shift, change our paradigm by thought alone, just to begin with. So by changing the way we see the person sitting opposite to us, without holding just our perceptions, which are limits to what we know to be true, and we see beyond that, and we see deeper than that, we're allowing ourselves to shift out of the current state belief system that we're in, and we're now stepping into their shoes. When we're able to do that, we've shifted a part of our paradigm, because now our thinking processes and our perceptions are no longer where they were, because now they're on the opposite side. When you're able to do that, that's the first step of change. The second part is when you're sitting on this side of the spectrum instead of on the same side that you've been sitting for so long, you get to decide, while you're looking from this lens, if you were happy with what you had on that side, without any prejudice, without any judgment, without any malice. And so what the great thing is, when you are on this side and you can tell where you were on this side, you can make a decision. If you want to stay where you were initially, you can make a decision to adapt, change, and take on board what you have on this end. Or you can mash them both together and say, I don't want either, and I want to try something else. So the form of change begins with changing our thoughts. See, our thoughts pretty much shape our life where we are. And these thoughts have already originated, became a part of our identity since we were young kids. But it isn't our truth. Only parts of it is our truth. And let's look at it in a different dimension. Let's think of a phone. You know, if you're young and you've received your phone for the very first time, everybody wants to put their 2 cents in. Download this app, download that app, and this one's great, and this one. And so you've got a shrine of apps that most likely are not something you're going to use, okay? Then some of them you're going to use, but they're not yourself. But you see these people always playing the bubble game, and so you put it on and you downloaded it and now you're using it, but it's not something you like. Usually you like chess, but you never thought of downloading chess because someone else suggested something else to download. Now what happens to our brains is when we're born, we've been downloaded with all sorts of apps, perceptions, beliefs, religious values, cultures, how to be, how not to be, how to speak, how not to speak, and vice versa. When you have all these apps and you're not aware of them anymore because early on in your life you were just pure consciousness, it's only one day when a trauma, an incident, or you just wake up and decide, I'm not really happy. I want to be something more and something different. And so you come out of that and you change your paradigm by thought alone, And that thought shifts you to go on a search and find something else. Just like the phone. You've got all these apps, and then one day your phone says it's overheating, you cannot download what you do want right now because there's just an overload of apps in there that you most likely haven't even used. And so you start to go through it and you start to filter through each single one. When you do that, you realize that some of them will say it has not been used, very long time not being used, running in the background and never being used, and so they push them down at the list for you to actually uninstall. And the ones that you have recently used, they've kept them at the top. But what do you go and do? I'll give you the answer to that. You most likely end up uninstalling all the ones that you utilize most recent, and you leave all these defaulted ones that you downloaded based on people's opinions early on when you got the phone and you never used, and the ones that you did that you no longer use, there is like an attachment to it when it's not a part of your story, a part of your life, a part of who you are as an identity within that phone. And so you leave it, and then you start to delete all the great ones that you really love at the top of the list. And now you've made space to download another one. And then you put the other one, but the phone is still slow. And that's because all the ones down below are the ones that you would have needed to delete, because they're the ones that are not bringing sufficiency to your life. They're not bringing you value. They're actually devaluing a lot of parts of your life because they're filling up a space that is unused, almost like an autopilot inside your mindset, but in your phone. And so what we do in timeline therapy is we go back into the very first moment of your downloads, and we find the ones that really stood out for you and that don't bring you any service anymore, they don't provide you a good value, and we knock it down almost while you're consciously and unconsciously aware through verbalization. So you're in a semi-trance state of hypnosis, but at the same time your eyes are open and closed throughout the whole process, sitting upright as we clear it. And what we do while we're clearing it is we get to the first one, and because it's so pretty much the model of your world becomes so rigid around this truth and belief that you never utilize, but it's been sitting there and just taking up so much room, we knock it down, and it's almost like a domino effect. Imagine this is a domino and it drops. Automatically everything nearby will drop by, and what happens is the timeline begins to go a little bit more balanced, and then your mindset is a lot more in a state of calm where everything from the past has been emptied to allow to reinstall, re-download new apps of compassion, belief, new values, new wisdom, new way of being, new way of just giving space to find yourself. And so when we do that, your cup is now empty to fill up with great things, instead of, as opposed to emptying the top layer of the cup and refilling, and then still the values are not aligned with the new downloads that we've put. And so timeline therapy works in that formula. Now, let's put timeline therapy on the side, and let's just say you don't want to use a therapist for whatever your reasons are at this point in time. You can go ahead and do it yourself. All you need is a paper, a pen, and truthful thoughts. What do I mean by truthful thoughts? Sit down with yourself and begin to speak from the moment you were born. What were the things that you repetitively have heard, whether it was at school, from a parent, from a sibling, and write them down. And then once you're done writing down all the things you've repeatedly heard, those are the apps that have been downloaded in your mind, because repetition is what stabilizes something in the mindset. And so as you do that, you begin to see a pattern on your paper. Then cross out the ones, or highlight or circle the ones that you no longer want. Then you go back and put yourself in a nice meditative state. When you do that, go into that timeline of yours, which is pretty much your past or your future or your present moment. It's just a lineage of where you're at right now, where you were in the past, where you are moving forward, and your timeline can see in any direction of your own view. And think about 10 to 20 things you could learn from that particular stabilization that you've circled so many times, you've noticed the pattern of, and write them down. Well, I can choose to let it go. I am grateful I am limitless. I am fearless. I can overcome this. I want to overcome this. And so when you start to write a whole list just based on one value that's been stabilized, all you're doing is actually almost like eating away. It's a formula of uninstalling the old system. Now, the more you do that, the less likely it's going to be stabilized, as in the model of your world. It's lessened, lessened, lessened. Once you're complete with that process and you've finalized it, you go to the next one and you keep going through the whole list that you have that you no longer want to have. And I'll give you an example. Some people might say, I'm done, or I'm not good enough. And that had come because a certain parent or sibling repetitively had said that. And so it's been stabilized in the brain. Whether the brain truthfully, consciously believes it or not, in the unconscious, it's there because it's popped up through that process of you writing the list. And so we gotta dim the light on it, uninstall it. In order to uninstall it, we need to put a counteractive 10 to 20, if not more, positives to overpower it. And it's not positive as in affirmations, it's things that you could work on. I can find a way out. I will find a way out. I'm choosing to find a way out. And you write this down. I'm now becoming more empowered by letting this go. I choose to forgive, let's say, the person that stabilized this in my thoughts, because they didn't know more than what they did know at that time. I didn't know that this wasn't a smart idea to download this app and keep it in there. And now I would like to clear it. And so I deserve happiness. I deserve the freedom. And so the more that you follow through within this process, the more likely you diminish that and you uninstall it, and it's no longer a part of your paradigm. Once that's cleared, you've got something to work with. You've got a cup that's now empty, and now you can fill it up with beautiful things. So then you go into a fresh page and write a list of the things that you want to create for yourself. I want to be a musician. I want to become a better parent. I want to work on my inner self, as in my self-care, my routine, my health, my mental state. I want to search for other values, courses, maybe cultures and religions that I would like to utilize and adapt in my life that works for my values. Because at this point, you're a fresh slate and you don't really know where your values are sitting at. And so because of that, because you're overriding the old value system that's been imposed on you growing up, and you're trying to rewrite a new chapter, it's very exciting. It gets very uncomfortable, but super exciting, because you can alter and change many parts of it as you're growing, as you adapt, as you meet new people and friends, and you ask them about what their values are, and you're like, okay, I don't mind that particular value. Integrity, it means something to me. I would like to add that on my list. How do you do integrity? What is it about integrity that means something to you, that you know that you hold integrity? And so you extract all these answers from someone and you put it on your list, and you see, does it mesh through what you want for yourself? And so you're no longer now downloading all types of apps inside your brain based on people's opinion. You're picking and choosing, you're calculating, you're thinking, will it work, won't it work for me? And if you download it and realize, it's not who I am at this point in time, it's not who I want to be in the next few years, you move it off and start with a new one. The reason why we do this is because a lot of us have been living a life about someone else and never ourselves. And I feel, and I notice, and I see a lot with my clientele that come through, they feel a sense of loss, a sense of lack of knowing who their identity is. And that's pretty much because their identity has been built on someone else's beliefs and perceptions. And so my job is to go deeper, to clear all of that fog, and to find truthfully what they want. And a lot of people are like, I don't know what I want. I know what I don't want, but I don't know what I want. And so the idea of therapy is to invoke a state of creativity, to invite the idea of knowing what you possibly do want. And then from that foundation, we begin to add new models and new ways and perceptions and beliefs to get the client to something where they didn't know that they really did want, based on something that they didn't want that they wanted to clear, and then it will give them that enhancement of self-belief. It'll clear the self-doubt. It'll allow them to have the confidence. It will allow them to have self-sufficiency in making their own decisions and begin to grow and flourish. And so that's what pretty much the form of therapy that I utilize within my clinic. And this is something you can do at home if you feel you're not ready to see someone and to express what's going on because you yourself don't know what is really going on. Sit down with yourself, meditate in a quiet room, write down the list, go into your timeline, just extract it. I haven't given you the details of the how to get in real deep, but all it is, it's quite basic. Just sit quietly within yourself, within a beautiful intention. What do I want? What do I not want? Write down the list. Notice the patterns, extract them, then against it 10 to 20 positive things to overcome and override it, and that begins to uninstall those apps that have been built in your mindset from a young age and even through adulthood. And that should clear one part of the process of your self-discovery journey, and it will allow you to foresee what you do want in the future, and it'll just help you build those blocks of foundations of who am I? Who do I want to be? Who would I like to become? And so from then on, you can discover your truth within yourself, no longer based on people's opinions, but based on the opinion that you believe to be true for you, without the outside noise and the effects of the environment that have affected you for such a long time. From my heart to yours, as always.